I'm Dave. I'm going to bring some good news. Okay? I love Brian, but that was a little scary. Let's see. First, I'm going to get you some money. I see it there, yeah. I'm going to get you some cash. Who's from Pennsylvania here? $100 if you register petition.theamericapac.org. And for every other person you get to register, you get another $100, and you can split it with them. This is thanks to our new friend, our best friend, Elon Musk, who's now also going to be here in Philadelphia. So please spread the word, petition.theamericapac.org. My name is Dave Harvilicz, and I'm a tech startup founder from California. First of all, I'd like to thank American Freedom Alliance and Karen in particular, but also Jessamine, Sandra, and my friend Brian Kennedy. I'm really honored and happy to be here. I'd also like to say that it was back in March when I attended an AFA event called the War on Women, and just as a regular audience member, I was down there with you, and I can say that if you've never been to one of these events in person, it's really awesome. And it makes a big difference to be here in person. So please try to come to one in the future if you can. It's really worth it. So look, I'll explain a little bit more about who I am in a few seconds, but let me tell you what I'm here to talk about. This past July, as Karen said, I was at NatCon with Brian, and I gave a talk about some structural problems inside the US government that must be overcome to decouple us from the CCP, to best position us in this accelerating global conflict. The Cliff Notes version is that there are political and legal hurdles that we need to get past in the government, and there are also obstacles put in our way by our very own people. I outlined some ways that we can go about fixing these things. It's on YouTube under NatCon, but there's also a written summary that it's on the American Conservative and the Hungarian Conservative. If you just want to read that, it's faster. A shout out to my friends in Budapest. But today I'm going to talk about structural problems outside the government that prevent us from decoupling from China and getting us in a better position for a third world war. I'll give you the bottom line right up front. Allowing our elites to sell us out for Chinese slave labor under the euphemism of free trade turns out to have been a terrible idea. Wall Street and the intelligentsia got it all wrong. In fact, they're still getting it wrong. All the guys at the Council on Foreign Relations and McKinsey and in the private intelligence firms like TD and Hackett, they still tell us that, number one, globalization is the way to go, and number two, we're worried about nothing, that China is about to implode any second. In fact, this guy at Stratfor, Peter Zeihan, has literally been predicting China's collapse next week, every week for the past 20 years. You know who got it right? The deplorables. The common sense Americans who knew in their gut that ripping out our manufacturing base and replacing it with a service economy was just a bad idea. And I'd like to introduce you to one of these guys, because I want to compare him and me, okay, just as like a content delivery mechanism, to crystallize two competing viewpoints, Main Street versus Wall Street. And all of this is completely true, by the way. That's him. This is Ferdinand Paul Ignatius Schneider, also known as my Uncle Ferd. He was born November 20th, 1932, grew up in South Baltimore, and went to Southern High School. During the Korean War, he joined the Army. He used to speak very fondly about his time in Sandia, New Mexico, where he was a marksman and MP. When my own father fell down on the job after coming back from Vietnam, Uncle Ferd picked up where he left off and was my role model and my best friend. He supported me in everything, and I owe him a lot. And this is him at my college graduation. His dad died early, so Uncle Ferd passed up a lot of opportunities to go away to college and stayed home to take care of his mother and 6 younger siblings. He took a job at Bethlehem Steel at Sparrows Point in Baltimore, where he worked as a machinist for 40 years. I, on the other hand, couldn't wait to get out of Maryland. After college in Virginia, I went as fast as I could to New York City, landing at a very fancy law school with strong ties to Wall Street. After growing up riding bikes with my sister on county roads in rural Maryland, with cornfields and cows and chickens, I couldn't wait to make the big bucks. I worked in the World Trade Center at a hotshot law firm and remember going up to the roof of World Trade One because if you had an ID, you could skip the tourist line. And I'd look down on Manhattan and feel like I was on top of the world. And in many ways, I was, and so was America. It was the end of history, and America seemed unstoppable. Here's some other stuff to show my old life in the rat race. I went from Wall Street to Silicon Valley to Hollywood, where I live now. I've been in hundreds of corporate boardrooms at the biggest companies, and I've been a part of or privy to lots of backroom conversations with CEOs and the oligarchs. I'm not bragging about this. It's actually kind of the opposite. I'm kind of trying to confess. Let me juxtapose my Uncle Ferd and me, because it was quite literally like the embodiment of the conflict between Wall Street and Main Street. Now we call it globalism versus nationalism, but it's basically the same thing. When Uncle Ferd retired, he moved up here to Red Lion. I used to fly in from California to see him, and we'd invariably start debating. I'd argue about how the free market helps working class Americans have higher standards of living because they get cheaper goods. All the theoretical stuff I learned about in school, comparative advantage, the benefits of free trade, all that. He would say, boy, even with all those fancy degrees, you're still kind of a dummy. We can't build tanks without steel, and the Chinese aren't going to give you their steel when you need it. Then in 2001, this happened. I'll never forget when he handed me the letter describing how his pension was being taken over by the federal government. It was demoralizing for him, and his experience is really symbolic of all the workers we threw away like a used napkin. He told me he was not optimistic about America's future and that China would soon be victorious. But something happened in 2016. Uncle Ferd, Aunt Lee, and all my deplorable relatives in Pennsylvania started telling me that I was wrong about a guy named Donald Trump, that I should wake up. And as was the case for most of my whole life, with their help, I did. So, keeping with my whole shtick of being from Hollywood, I've got a movie to show you. So I'd like to show it to you. It's pretty short, and then after that, I'm going to come back and talk a little more about our game plan, our plan of action. So, roll tape, please.
This is a war between the factories.
The secret war of the factories that will decide the fate of the whole world. Such is the dynamism of American industry that it switches with astonishing speed from producing tanks and guns and jeeps to new and exciting models of cars, televisions, washing machines, and 1,000 other things.
You're all aware that we live in an industrial society, and that this way of life has been made possible largely by technical advance.
America is today the strongest, the most influential, and most productive nation in the world. This world of ours must avoid becoming a community of dreadful fear and hate, and be instead a proud confederation of mutual trust and respect.
The United States exited the 20th century as the world's economic leader. Things have changed dramatically. American economy has a hard time generating new jobs.
Half of Detroit's auto workforce lost their jobs.
We've seen a lot of factory closures as Chinese imports surged into the United States. We're going to be in a serious economic competition with China.
About 2 decades ago, the island looked like this. Now it's a shipbuilding powerhouse. That single shipyard has more shipbuilding capacity than the entire U.S. naval shipbuilding industry.
The U.S. used to own advanced technology manufacturing. We've lost the ability to produce and manufacture.
The Defense Department spent $3 billion on foreign construction contracts, leaving American steel and iron out in the cold.
And now the hard truth is, a lot of those jobs are not going to come back. Some companies are always going to find it more profitable to pick up and do business in some other part of the world.
This is not a message of happiness or reassurance, but it is the truth.
Tonight, American manufacturers are bringing offshore jobs back to the U.S., hoping to create positions and prevent supply chain disruptions. It's known as reshoring.
U.S. manufacturing activity soared to its highest level in more than 37 years in March.
Silicon Valley investors were very wary of anything that wasn't pure software, and now we've seen that cross a host of government agencies who are really, truly excited to work with young people and to work with young entrepreneurs.
It's not good enough to spin up a bunch of software companies to give people tools to help automate their thing. If you want to reshore American manufacturing, you have to give American workers superpowers so they can compete globally. You really need to build full-stack factories.
Everybody, or at least in Silicon Valley, is solving upstream problems. They're trying to build easy tools that will scale well, that your local VC wants to fund. There needs to be a resurgence of people that are building real things.
It's a feeling of growth, prosperity, movement, and opportunity. It's the belief that the values and beliefs that this country was founded upon are worth defending and worth fighting for.
Given even just half a chance, the American people, the American workers, has never, ever let the country down.
Because we believe in that beautiful phrase, made in the USA.
Over the last few years, it's become more expensive to do business in countries like China. Meanwhile, American workers, we've become even more productive.
We're going to develop the new technology here in the U.S. We're going to manufacture the new technology here in the United States, and then we're going to sell it all around the world.
This can be remembered as the moment we took control of our destiny and chose a future of American patriotism, prosperity, and pride.
We will win this war, we'll protect our homeland, and we will revive our economy.
Manufacturing is coming back. We're moving in the right direction. And now we have to do everything in our power to keep our foot on the gas.
Life cannot just be about solving one miserable problem after another. That can't be the only thing. There need to be things that inspire you, that make you glad to wake up in the morning and be part of humanity.
We see a world that we can help build that looks a lot like the continuation of the 70s. Building bases on the moon, building cars that can fly.
The new frontier is not a set of promises. It is a set of challenges. Beyond that frontier are uncharted areas of science and space.
We've always believed in something called progress. We've always had a faith that the days of our children would be better than our own.
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness. There's something going on in time and space and beyond time and space, which, whether we like it or not, spells duty.
Okay, thanks. Good. Okay. I'm going to talk fast because I've got a battle plan. Are you guys ready? Let's see. I'm going to put it there for a second. So, first, we must make America a manufacturing powerhouse again. Okay, but how? Well, here's how. Let's slash taxes on American-based manufacturing to zero for the next 10 years. You heard me right? Zero. If you're building in America, you're keeping profits in America, it'll work. In fact, the Chinese did it. In 2002, when I went there for Logitech, it was because they gave them a 10-year tax amnesty. So we must introduce tariffs that will make one thing crystal clear. If you want to reap the rewards of the American consumer market, you'd better sow your factories on American soil. We must also spread production across friendly democracies like India and across Southeast Asia and South America, but use the investment to incentivize countries to stay on our side of the football. Here at home, we must leverage our domestic energy production to make American manufacturing even more competitive. Second, we must invest in the American worker. We should reclaim John Podesta's $370 billion government fund for clean energy investments and use it to support private sector investments in domestic workforce development. We will make manufacturing the envy of every other industry sector. We will show our young people that there's no higher calling than creating, than building, than bringing American ingenuity to life with their own two hands. Imagine a new army of American workers armed not with rifles or DEI lawsuits, but with robotic arms and 3D printers. Imagine a generation that doesn't just code social media apps, but builds the very machines that build the future. It's not a dream, folks. It's already starting. Can you push me back one? Let me read from this news story. I'm going to read fast. Picture a hub of military technology and manufacturing in the U.S. that's focused on a possible future conflict with China or Russia. Men, they're almost all men, hang giant American flags, smoke cigarettes, pray and quote the Bible, and partake in other trends typical among conservative people, such as drinking raw milk. In today's polarized America, a group of such workers would likely be based in a red state like Texas or Florida, far away from the innovation hub that is Silicon Valley and the San Francisco Bay Area. This hub, however, is called the Gundo, short for El Segundo, the beachside industrial city in Los Angeles County. As detailed by Vanity Fair, the entrepreneurs and workers are in El Segundo because, quote, it's a place where they can act as faithful foot soldiers of American industry as well as bold incubators upending Silicon Valley's status quo. Companies like Neros, which manufactures drones used by Ukraine in their war against Russia, and Valar Atomics, a nuclear energy company, call El Segundo home. Though the companies differ, one thing largely stood out to the reporter: the fervent displays of patriotism in largely liberal Los Angeles County. Quote, maybe we just like America, said Valar Atomics founder Isaiah Taylor, who's 25. For me, being patriotic is like asking me if I love my mom. Like, you love your mother, right? I don't know why we have such a hard time with that in the US. The patriotism, the cigarettes, and everything else is all done and posted to social media with one thing in mind, said Cameron Schiller, the co-founder and CEO of the aerospace manufacturer Rangeview. It's totally intentional. You have to make it cool. We're trying to bring more young people into manufacturing. So, in fact, the woman that you saw in that movie that was talking about investing in manufacturing, she's a venture capitalist at Andreessen Horowitz, one of the big boys in Silicon Valley. And now we have Elon, and another great patriot, Palmer Luckey, is also doing amazing things at Anduril. My own firm raised VC money from some very patriotic investors. It's really starting to happen. We just have to push our foot on the gas. Okay, back to our policy prescriptions. Okay, third, we must secure our supply chains. No more relying on strategic competitors for the lifeblood of our nation, aka China. We must bring back the production of small, medium, and large power transformers back to American soil within the next 3 years. We must also expand our capacity to produce everything from artillery shells and advanced semiconductors, because true security isn't just about having the strongest military, it's about having the strongest foundation. Now let's talk briefly about the elephant in the room, the almighty dollar. For decades, the US dollar has been our ace in the hole, our trump card in global affairs. But we've been playing poker with our economic future, and the rest of the world is starting to call our bluff. As we speak, the BRICS nations are plotting to unveil a new global currency to compete with the dollar, and it might be backed by gold. This would represent a direct challenge to the dollar's crown. If we lose our status as the world's reserve currency, it won't just bruise our ego. It'll shatter our economy, and everything from your coffee to your kids' education to your new home and car will become much more expensive. The American dream itself will be at risk. But here's the good news. We can stop it. We must preserve the dollar's strength. How? By rebuilding trust, by showing the world that America isn't just a good bet, it's the only bet. We must rebuild our industrial base. We must innovate faster and reach further than ever before. Having Elon Musk help slow down the printing press and cut government spending as the new head of government efficiency will go a long way to this end. This, my fellow Americans, is our moonshot. This is our Manhattan Project. This is how we secure not just the next 4 years, but the next 4 generations. So here again are my 3 commandments for our new industrial revolution very quickly. First, we must make America a manufacturing powerhouse again. This isn't just about widgets and gadgets. Manufacturing is the bedrock of our national security, the foundation of our way of life, and the key to our place in the world. We must support it. We must demand it. We must make Made in America our personal pledge. Second, we must invest in the American worker. We must show young people that there's no higher calling than creating, than building, than bringing American ingenuity to life with their own 2 hands. A career in manufacturing isn't just a job. It's a hero's journey to rebuild our nation and save lives torn apart by despair and addiction. Third, we must secure our supply chains. No more relying on China for the lifeblood of our nation. We must bring the production of critical components back to American soil. That's everything from power transformers to drones to advanced semiconductors, because true security isn't the strongest military, it's the strongest foundation. The time for half measures and hollow promises is over. We need action. We must rally our next president and Congress. We must demand policies that bring our factories roaring back to life, that secure our borders against the flood of deadly drugs, that invest in communities ravaged by this outsourcing. And your voice isn't just heard, it's the drumbeat of our national resurgence. Fellow Americans, the path we choose today will echo through eternity. Will we accept the soft whisper of decline, or will we roar back our defiance to the heavens? Will we let America fade into the background, or will we paint our greatness across the global stage in bold, brilliant strokes? Steve Bannon often reminds us that we owe as much to past generations as we do to future ones. In that spirit, I would like to dedicate my effort to my Uncle Ferd and to the millions of other Americans who sacrificed for all of us to be here today. So, let's show the world what Americans are made of. Let's beat the odds. Let's go beyond what anybody thinks is possible. It's time to rebuild our factories, secure our children's future, heal our divided communities, and this is how we prevent the current global conflict from getting worse and how we come out on top. And I'll leave you with this quote from Ronald Reagan. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We will preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we will sentence them to take the first step into 1,000 years of darkness. If we fail, at least let our children and our children's children say of us, we justified our brief moment here. We did all that could be done. Here are some people involved in this re-industrializing movement, if you want to follow them on Twitter. But I just want to thank you all for listening to me and say God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.